I see Earth. It's so beautiful. Of course, this is the English translation of the words spoken by Yuri Gagarin, the Russian pilot who became the first person to journey into space on April 12, 1961. His historic flight delivered a sharp blow to the United States, the Soviet Union's arch-rival in the 20th century space race. Now, however, those words are remembered in a different light, as a story of healing for Roscosmos's current struggles. Russia, once a dominant force in space exploration, is now a shadow of its former self. A U.S. private space company has left them far behind. It's almost unthinkable, a private company competing with an entire nation. Even more astonishingly, it has won. How has Elon Musk's SpaceX managed to topple the pride of a once mighty nation? All this and more in today's episode of Great SpaceX. Russia was once a pioneer in the space industry, a dominant force that shaped the golden age of the Soviet space program. This era is best remembered for the intense space race with the United States. During the 20th century, the Soviet space program achieved numerous milestones that remain iconic in the history of space exploration. In 1957, the Soviets launched the first intercontinental ballistic missile, the R-7 Semyorka, which also sent the first artificial satellite, Sputnik 1, into Earth's orbit. That same year, they placed the first living being, Laika the dog, into orbit. In 1961, Yuri Gagarin became the first human to journey into space, a triumph that inspired global admiration. The Soviets continued to lead with groundbreaking achievements. Valentina Tereshkova became the first woman in space in 1963, and Alexei Leonov conducted the first-ever spacewalk in 1965. The program also made early attempts to explore the moon with robotic missions. After the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, Russia emerged as the dominant player in the post-Soviet space landscape. It inherited a vast majority of the Soviet Union's space capabilities, including about 75% of the economic value of space-related properties and 90% of the space industry enterprises. With these resources, Russia continued to build on its legacy of human spaceflight, primarily through its Soyuz spacecraft. The Soyuz became a reliable vehicle for transporting astronauts to and from the International Space Station, cementing Russia's role as a key player in international space initiatives. Roscosmos, Russia's space agency, demonstrated its strength as a dependable partner to the United States after the retirement of NASA's space shuttle in 2011. For nearly a decade, the U.S. relied on Russia to maintain its presence in space. Between 2011 and 2020, 38 American astronauts flew on 35 Soyuz missions. During this time, the United States also purchased RD-180 rocket engines from Russia, critical for powering Atlas launch vehicles. By April 2021, a total of 122 RD-180 engines had been delivered, with 98 successfully used in U.S. launches over more than 2 decades. Russia's historical achievements and continued contributions highlight its once commanding role in space exploration, even as new players have emerged to redefine the industry. Once a leader in space exploration, Russia now finds itself struggling to maintain relevance in a rapidly changing global space industry. A formerly proud pioneer, the Soviet Union's legacy in space was marked by significant achievements, such as launching the first satellite, Sputnik 1, in 1957, sending the first human into space, Yuri Gagarin in 1961, and performing the first spacewalk in 1965. These milestones cemented the Soviet Union's place as a key player in the early years of space exploration. In the 20th century, Russia's space program was a powerful symbol of national pride and a key competitor in the heated Cold War-era space race with the United States. Yet as we enter the 21st century, Russia's role in space has drastically diminished. Once a leader in satellite launches and a significant partner for international space missions, Russia is now largely overshadowed by private companies, namely SpaceX, which have revolutionized the space industry with new technologies, cost-effective strategies, and bold ambitions. As of December 2024, SpaceX's progress is nothing short of extraordinary. The company has already launched a flight-proven Falcon 9 rocket booster for the 350th time, with 300 of those landings being successful. This level of operational efficiency and innovation has allowed SpaceX to perform more rocket launches in a year than Russia has completed in the past decade. In comparison, it took Russia 11 years to reach 123 rocket launches, a number SpaceX routinely achieves in a matter of months. In 2024, SpaceX plans to perform more than 100 launches, solidifying its status as the leader in the commercial space race. This dramatic difference in rocket launches is a clear indication of the obsolescence of Russia's space technology. While Russia still maintains its Soyuz spacecraft, a long, reliable vehicle for transporting astronauts to the International Space Station, much of its space infrastructure remains outdated. This stands in sharp contrast to SpaceX, whose emphasis on innovation and cost-effective design has drastically reduced the cost of launching payloads into space while also pushing the boundaries of reusable rocket technology. SpaceX has led the way in reducing the cost of space missions by a factor of 20, making commercial spaceflight more accessible than ever before. By 2020, SpaceX had captured half of the commercial satellite launch market, while Russia's market share had fallen to a mere 10%. One of the most striking aspects of Russia's struggle to keep up in the space industry is its rapid decline in the satellite launch market. SpaceX's Starlink project, a satellite internet constellation, has gained over 4 million subscribers worldwide, significantly expanding SpaceX's global influence. In stark contrast, Russia's satellite business has seen a massive decline in launch contracts. After Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, its international reputation suffered a severe blow. European countries and other international partners rapidly distanced themselves from Russian space services. As a result, satellite orders for Russia plummeted by 90%, with much of the market moving to other nations like India, China, and the United States. European countries, which had once relied heavily on Russia's Soyuz rockets for satellite launches, began seeking alternative launch services after the invasion of Ukraine. For example, Russia's contract with OneWeb, a UK-based satellite internet provider, was canceled in March 2022, when Roscosmos demanded guarantees that the satellites would not be used for military purposes. OneWeb turned to SpaceX to fulfill its launch needs, with the company offering a more reliable and cost-effective solution. Similarly, the European Space Agency, ESA, terminated its joint Mars mission with Russia, opting to pursue its plans independently. SpaceX's ability to dominate the satellite launch market has reshaped the global space sector. By focusing on reusable rockets and cost-effective technology, SpaceX has become the go-to provider for satellite launch services. The company's remarkable success in this area has shifted the balance of power in space exploration, leaving Russia struggling to catch up. Smaller spacefaring nations, such as China and India, have also capitalized on this shift in market dynamics. These countries are now vying for a larger share of the satellite launch market, further eroding Russia's once dominant position. The stark financial contrast between Roscosmos and SpaceX underscores the challenges Russia faces. SpaceX's ability to secure funding from private investors and government contracts has allowed the company to grow exponentially. In comparison, Roscosmos has suffered from declining revenue and shrinking budgets. In 2021, Roscosmos's revenue plummeted to just 10.5 billion rubles, approximately $113.7 million, down from 32.3 billion rubles in 2018. This financial decline has been exacerbated by political instability caused by Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine, which has led to further economic sanctions and restrictions on the country's space activities. On the flip side, SpaceX has continued to thrive, expanding its capabilities and securing government contracts for both military and commercial launches. The company's achievements, such as the successful launches of the Falcon Heavy, its reusable rocket program, and its Starlink satellite constellation, have solidified its status as the leading player in the space industry. In the coming years, SpaceX is set to further expand its dominance with the development of its next-generation rocket, Starship. Designed to carry humans to the Moon, Mars, and beyond, Starship represents the future of space exploration. With its potential to transport large payloads and conduct deep space missions, Starship will further engrave SpaceX's role in shaping the future of space. The political climate in both Russia and the United States further highlights the divergent paths these two countries are taking in the space race. SpaceX's close relationship with the U.S. government, especially during the Trump administration, has provided the company with numerous advantages. Musk's support for Trump's re-election bid in 2024, as well as his financial contributions to pro-Trump PACs, has strengthened SpaceX's influence within the U.S. government. This support is likely to result in even more government contracts and collaboration with NASA, especially as the U.S. seeks to maintain its leadership in space exploration. Meanwhile, Russia's space program is increasingly isolated due to its geopolitical actions, particularly the war in Ukraine. Sanctions from the EU and UK have severely impacted Roscosmos, forcing it to suspend operations in the French Guiana spaceport and cut ties with key partners. Russia's decision to stop selling RD-180 engines to the US has had little effect, as the US has diversified its space capabilities, with ULA and SpaceX now leading the market. As Russia's space industry declines, its reliance on the ISS is becoming less viable, especially with the station set to retire by the 2030s. Facing financial strain and a shrinking market share, Roscosmos' future remains uncertain. Meanwhile, SpaceX continues to thrive with its Starship development and involvement in NASA's Artemis program, further establishing its dominance. SpaceX's successful satellite launches and crewed missions ensure it remains the leader in space exploration, with private companies driving the future of the industry. As SpaceX pushes forward, Russia's space program fades into the background, leaving the future of space exploration in the hands of the private sector. Well, folks, that's about it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and as always, this has been Kevin from Great SpaceX. Until next time, keep looking up.